The following thoughts and opinions regarding this album are strictly of my own personal interests. I am not a professional music reviewer. I do encourage respectful discussion and friendly banter of each episode, but I do not condone and will not tolerate bullying or belligerence of any kind. Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rate the Record podcast, episode 118. Thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Chris, as always, sitting here in this chair, in this studio, doing these album reviews with you, doing these along with me, checking out this music. I thank you for joining me, as always. I just ask that if you like what you see and or hear today, that you do one of the things, a bunch of the things, or all the things I'm about to list to help support the channel. It's quick, free, and easy. Like, subscribe, rate, share, comment, and follow. All 6 of the things, again, just a portion of them or even one of them truly do help. The algorithm likes it. I like it. Makes me feel good. Community's being built. That's kind of what I'm looking for out of this whole thing. So would you please and thank you do that. You can even wait till the end of the episode if you so please. I don't mind. You can actually do that. And you can also find all the places to do those things over at ratetherecord.ca. That is ratetherecord.ca. All the streaming links, social media links, the RTR merch that you can find and buy, and of course the RTR Club, the financial way to support the show. It's optional, but the option is indeed yours. $3 a month will get you early access to episodes, a shout out on social media. If you have a band, you got a song that you want me to, review and eventually have it on YouTube, I can do that too. You can request an album for the show, and I'm sure there's something else in there, but regardless, all of that is found at ratetherecord.ca. And of course, if you've been here before, you already know I got to get all this out of the way first. So welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining me again. Hope that you enjoyed today's album. Hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Glad to see you here again. It's always fantastic to have the returning listeners to the podcast. And of course, if you're new here, though, that's very important to me as well. Welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy your stay, have a good time, enjoy the album, enjoy the episodes, enjoy the community, enjoy just giving your own musical opinions in this space. I very much welcome it. I look forward to seeing yours. Chances are you might not know what we do here on the show, despite the idea that the show is called Rate the Record. Yes, that much is obvious, but let me give you a quick rundown. So each week, I will choose an album. It could be completely at random. Maybe it's celebrating an anniversary. Maybe it's a request. It doesn't really matter. Regardless, I will choose an album. I will listen to it from front to back right here on the show in few second chunks for you at the very least, because I don't want to get my ass kicked by copyright. I will listen to it all. I'll give you my thoughts on the songs, the album, and then, of course, the bread and butter of the entire podcast, rank the songs and rate the record. That's how it works here. It's simple, cut, paste. Couldn't say it much easier than that. So, for today, we're looking at an artist that I actually originally found in roughly, this album came out in 2009 that we're doing today. That's around the time I found them, because there was one song that came on Much Music on a show called The Wedge where it showed independent music videos, and I was like, that's really cool. It stuck with me this whole time, and here I am revisiting this album years later. It's been a long time since I've listened to it. I'm, of course, talking about Fever Ray and their self-titled debut album. We got a bunch to review, but before we do that, let's actually find out a little more about the album itself. Fever Ray is the alias of Gothenburg, Sweden-born Karin Dreyer, and their self-titled debut album was released on January 12, 2009. Dreyer has been active on the music scene since 1994, being a part of the indie rock band Honey Is Cool, and then an experimental electronic duo known as The Knife with their brother Olaf Dreyer. Back to the album, it was released through Rabid Records, a mini Swedish label originally created by members of Honey Is Cool, and it was produced by Karin, as well as Christoph Berg and Van Rivers and the Subliminal Kid. Aside from Fever Ray, additional musical performance consisted of Cecilia Nordland as guest vocals on the song Keep the Streets Empty For Me, and Hampus Lundgren, who plays the double bass on I'm Not Done. The album garnered a lot of positive attention as it currently sits at an 81 on Metacritic. The Guardian and The Independent gave the album 5 stars out of 5, AllMusic, The Observer, and Q gave it 4 out of 5, and the AV Club and MSN Music gave it an A-. Many publications put the album on their top albums of the year lists, including The Guardian, who put it at number 2. The album appeared on 13 charts, 5 giving it a top 10 placement, including US Heat Seekers at number 10, Norwegian Albums Charts at number 9, Swedish Albums and US Top Dance Electronic Albums at number 8, and the Belgian Alternative Albums Chart at number 7. The album spawned 4 singles. If I Had a Heart, which hit number 1 on the Belgian back catalog singles chart. When I Grow Up, which hit number 36 on Pitchfork's top 100 tracks of 2009. Triangle Walks, which hit number 20 on the Belgian dance charts. And 7, which hit number 15 on the Belgian dance charts. Well, there you go. Just a little bit more about that album, just in case you didn't know. But now it's time to know more about the album. The songs specifically, because we have to review this 1 through 10 right now. On the screen next to me here is the Spotify list, so wherever you're listening, hope you're listening along with me. Let's have fun on this one. And just a note for the video viewers too, if as we go along I start looking a little more like red or matted or sweaty, I'm in a very, very hot room right now. It's cool outside and no breeze comes through these windows at all. It's too cool for the AC. This room gets sweltering. I have 2 monitors, some lights, and a computer in here that's not really helping, so if I look matted, that's why. Other than that, we can continue on now with song number 1, If I Had a Heart. I will pause it there, because it ends right there anyways, it's fine. Song number 1, If I Had a Heart. Man, what an absolutely ominous, cold, and dark way to start an album. I'm here for it though. It's kind of different from what you usually get with an album starter. This feels like it would come later in the album, but this is kind of what we get. It sets the mood a little bit for the album to come, although there are many kind of, I don't want to say huge pickup points, but it doesn't remain this dreary all the way through. I think there's like a darker undertone to most of the album, but like this one is like pretty dark on its own. And yeah, that atmosphere is just really super thick in this one. It's like an unholy amount of like fog on like a riverbed or something along the lines of that, which I might be getting a bias of that through the music video I remember seeing like well over a decade ago. So I don't know, maybe there's that, but it works. It's an excellent visual. I think it's fantastic for this. And the vocal presentation in this one's fantastic too. I like her really kind of like soft voice, almost whispering to you with that lower pitched harmony kind of going right underneath it. I think that's kind of a really interesting choice to do. I'm not fond of the high and low vocals in some of the songs on this album, but I know I like it here. I think it fits very well. And also for this one too, choosing to keep those very up close to the mic, like wet mouth sounds. I know like a lot of people probably don't like that kind of stuff, and generally it's taken out in the productions and everything like that. So it just kind of makes this one feel a lot more unsettling, but somehow fitting. So it sounds good here. I don't think it happens at any other point in the album, so I will accept it for this once and that's it. But I can guarantee there are people who absolutely hate that. But yeah, this was the very first Fever Ray song I ever heard, like 2009, 2010, as I said on Much Wedge. And I know people personally who watched the show Vikings and heard the song. I think this was like the intro to that show. I never watched it. I don't know. But so yeah, a lot of people discovered that song through song through that show. So there you go. If you like it, you like it either way. It's a great song. So glad to have it out now. So let's move on to song number 2, and that is When I Grow Up. Fading out now, song number 2, When I Grow Up. I think one of the more notable things about the song, like right off the top, is that like heartbeat style of bass drum that you get circulating its way through the entire track. I mean, like it's literally the lifeline of this song. That's very hypnotizing. I know I'm working with a lot of puns there, but it's a very honest observation of kind of what we're getting in this song. And even still feeling minimal, I feel like there's definitely more to take in with this one, at least as compared to the first track. There's a little more life going on in this one. You have some well-crafted synth and guitar moments that just kind of keep the song feeling smooth and flowing, whereas the drum machine, I think, does a good job at keeping everything kind of grounded and focused. So I like that we have like a mix of those things where we can flow a little bit, but we know exactly where we stand. Feels good to have that. It's just a nice constructed track. Some of the synth parts towards the end, though, I'm not super hot on. It didn't sound super great to me. There's just certain tones that I just think feel a little tacky or cheesy. This song had that. There are other tracks like that on this album. We will get there when we get there. But I mean, overall, it's still a pretty decent track. I'm not going to complain too much more about it. I dig this one. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So that means we can move on to song number 3, Dry and Dusty. Song number 3, as I pause it right there, Dry and Dusty. This one is just like a beat in a set of instrumental passages that are just about as dry and dusty as that title implies. But I mean that positively, though. I mean, like, this song, I think, works really well with its tones and textures. And especially those vocal harmonies as the song keeps moving on, I think are just really well done. I really like it. But the fact that the song's called Dry and Dusty and I'm getting that dry feeling from the instrumentals, I mean, what else could you possibly want? I shouldn't be imagining a waterfall with a title like that. So I think it's really good, just kind of like setting the mood, the atmosphere, some mental imagery too. So I like that little theater of the mind there. And I mean, this is very dreamy for the most part, as dry as it may be. And then, like, even having that one snare sound, though, which is about as light as a finger snap, if you really want to call it that, it really keeps you in the moment, as dreamy as the song is. So once again, we have like another grounding aspect to the percussion, which I think is good. Again, keeps you in the moment a little more instead of just kind of drifting away into the song, which can also be fine, but I think this requires a little more grounding, and it works here. It works well. I was kind of hoping for a little more towards the end, like, you know, picking up the percussion maybe a little more towards the end, building to something like a little bigger. It felt like 3/4 of the way through the song it was building to something a little more, but it never quite peaked. It was like building and then it just kind of like backed off. So I don't know. Hoping for something a little more out of it. It doesn't have to go crazy, but at the same time, just, I don't know, it left me wanting more out of it. But it's still a good song, though. I like this one actually a lot more than I remember originally liking it when I heard this years ago. And keep in mind, it's been, I don't even know at this point, like 10 years at the very least since I've last heard this album front to back. So very interesting to revisit it. And now let's revisit another song on it. Song number 4, 7. Fading Out, song number 4, 7. And I think at this point, this is probably definitely one of the more like accessible and pop-oriented tracks we've gotten so far on this album. You have a far more prominent drum machine it's still minimal, but far less minimal than some of the other tracks have been. And then you have these electro-dressed, like, soft synths kind of pushing this song along too. So that's what I think makes it more palatable to a poppier crowd. And I know that future FIFA Ray projects do kind of go in a little bit more popular directions too. So, I mean, it's just kind of par for the course, I suppose. Texturally, this song is really interesting too. I think there's like a lot to kind of pull from it. And one layer in specific that I really like, it comes about little halfway through the song or so, and it sounds like it's sweeping and scraping across. And I think it really works well as like an extra percussive layer, because it is part of the snare that you kind of hear going forward in that second part of the song. So I like the way that works. It sounds really cool in the headphones too. So if you're listening to it in headphones, you get treated to that. So long as you like that left to right and right to left panning and everything like that. I will say that this one's not my favorite on the album, I guess, spoiler alert, but it is far better than I remember it. Because I remember, again, when I first heard the song so long ago, for the first time, there's a lot of songs on this album I wasn't particularly fond of, but I mean, I've grown a lot since then, grown to appreciate a lot since then, so I think I have more of an appreciation for this song now than I would have like 10 or 15 years ago. So yay for aging and maturing, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, let's see how the rest of the album holds up with song number 5, Triangle Walks. Okay, song number 5, Triangle Walks. I like that this one still keeps up with that dancey percussive style that we got in the previous track, but I think this one is far more driven by its synth melodies, especially with that, like that 16th note kind of rhythm pushing us through and everything like that. So it feels like a little fresh as compared to the last song, still gives you something new and interesting to enjoy. So I'm liking that we're kind of getting that slight change up out of it instead of having essentially the exact same thing over again. And maybe it's me, I don't know, but I noticed that in this mix too, it seems like the vocals are buried behind some of the lead synths, which is kind of an interesting choice, I guess. I don't know if they did this on purpose. Because I know, like, I don't know, the vocals never really take a very front-facing lead in any songs. Maybe like a couple of them, but they're just kind of like surrounded by the instruments. But this one just felt a little more buried. I don't know, it was a little more weird because of it. And because this song also has mainly clean vocals that aren't so much affected by that kind of process pitch shifting, it still has it, but not as much as some of the other tracks. So I would have thought that their vocals would have been a little more prominent. I don't know. It feels a little weird to me when vocals get so buried and it seems unintentional. I don't know. Maybe it was intentional though. I would have to read more notes about the production process, and there's not a lot to find. But anyways, we can move on to song number 6, Concrete Walls. And as that echoing fades out, song number 6, Concrete Walls. We're definitely back to being a little darker and moodier with the song. And I'm really liking that additional layering of auxiliary percussion that we're getting in this one. You still have like your drum machine going on, but there's things that are far more like auxiliary and like in the room. It gave it a far more raw texture overall, and I really dig that. It feels like right off the floor, so it's a very much enjoyable sound, considering that a lot of what we're getting is electronic drum machine, so it's just nice to have that like little change up in that sound. And I kind of mentioned this earlier too, but I'm very kind of back and forth on how I feel about that very heavy vocal manipulation that we've been getting on this album for quite a few tracks. And I say that being a guy who is known for distorting his own vocals all the time in his own music project. Like, I always just distort the vocals. I mean, it's part of the industrial thing, so I mean, it just makes sense, I guess. But still, the fact that I'm talking about, oh, you're doing too much vocal manipulation, it's like, well, this feels weird now, doesn't it? Like, I don't know. It's mainly the pitch bending stuff, and it's not just Fever Ray. It's other bands and other solo artists I've heard do it before too. And there's something about it that doesn't sit well with me. Every once in a while it can be fine, depending on how it's used is fine. But I don't know. Sometimes it feels like a little much, and this is kind of one of those times. I'm a little wishy washy with it more often than not. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just being picky, but the good news is it didn't affect the score. I didn't dox points because of it, like, because I still really much enjoy this one. It's very chill, had a decent pulse to it, and again, I really like those raw auxiliaries. It just made the song that much more enjoyable for me. So now we will move on to song number 7. Now's the Only Time I Know. Okay, song number 7, Now's the Only Time I Know. I don't really have a whole lot for this one, and it gets hard to write these notes with how minimal these tracks can feel and how there's not tons going on. But I do like that call and answer style of vocals that we get through the first half of the track. It was actually quite fitting and didn't feel like an overabundance of just like overdoing the vocals for no reason. I thought it was really good, especially because that second layer of vocals was kind of quieter, so I don't know. That part felt good. I did enjoy that. But I mean, aside from that, though, I didn't really get a whole lot from this one. Like, even the peak towards the middle of the song felt pretty subdued, and then it just kind of went down from there. So once again, just kind of feeling like this could have given me a little more. And I'm not saying it has to go crazy. It doesn't have to get like huge and loud and everything like that, fill an entire Coliseum with its sound, but there's just more that you can sprinkle in and add to kind of like make it more exciting as it goes. But this one feels like it pulls back way too early. So just kind of, again, left feeling like I wanted more out of it, and the fact that I didn't feel like I got much from it says a lot about that too. Not necessarily terrible, but it could have been better. I'll say that much. Well, they're not done yet, because we can tell that from song number 8, I'm Not Done. Song number 8, I'm Not Done. And this one has a far more like minimal approach to the percussion, but it is interesting how it continues to build those percussive layers as it goes, though, despite how minimal it is. But no matter how much they add, it still feels very reverbed and distant. So I kind of like how it's just kind of creating this very like long style of like room that you kind of have to like venture through the sound for. I dig that. It just feels nice, feels very nice sonically is what I'm trying to say. And the production feels very like sweepy and watery throughout this entire thing too. So that's really nice. It's another very atmosphere heavy track, as I've already been kind of alluding to. But it still feels like, I mean, you could still feel the rhythmic swaying of everything in the song, despite the fact that, you know, there's just a lot of atmosphere that you could get lost in. So it's just nice to have this kind of stuff. I like this. Again, just a very sonically, texturally pleasing song with this one. I definitely enjoy it. I also just enjoyed like the fun little vocal mannerisms you get through the verses and everything like that. How she's like in one tone and just kind of bends it really high, comes down, and her voice is just kind of like, it's not hitting points. It's just kind of going over these bumps and waves. I like that too. It's very playful, enjoyable. I liked it. So we'll move on to the penultimate tracks. Track number 9, Keep the Streets Empty. Keep the Streets Empty for Me. There we go. I can speak. And as it goes out, song number 9, Keep the Streets Empty for Me. Another one of the singles I used to really like when I first got into this album too, a long time ago. I haven't really listened to a lot of this album in a very long time, so it's nice to revisit tracks like this too. This one's a very moody piece, and I know I've been using the word moody a lot in this review, but I mean, like, it's one of the best words I can possibly use to describe a lot of these things without just pulling out of the source and being like, it's this one, because you know what I mean anyways. Like, this one's moody enough that I feel like an instrumental version of the song could probably fit somewhere in like a Silent Hill OST. It has that vibe about it where it's not like super insanely dark. It feels like a little more emotional in a way too. So I think it would work very, very well as compared to some of the other tracks. It's quite haunting, and then you have those like quiet, almost tired style of vocals that I think perfectly suit what this song is going for too. So it's a well thought out composition, just well produced in this part too. Because you could have like, I don't know, went a little louder with it, intensified the harmonies, and if you did that, it just wouldn't feel the same. So it's nice that this one was kind of like down on more of an earthy level. I enjoy it for that. Like, I think it sounds really, really pretty. I will say it feels like it stretches on a little long going into the end. It's still an enjoyable track, don't get me wrong, all things considered, but I mean, it just, I don't know. This didn't feel like it needed to be, 5 minutes and 39 seconds. It probably could have even been a minute to a minute and a half shorter and would have been perfect. But I don't know. It stretched on a little bit. It's like, okay, wrap it up. We got the message. But it's okay. It's still a great song. I don't want to poo-poo on it too much because it was enjoyable. After all this time, after all these years, I still really like this one. So let's move on to the final track, song number 10, Coconut. I can't remember what that instrument's called. It's like the little like finger pick kind of like piano on the wooden board thing. I can't remember what it's called, but regardless, I really like that sound. So I'm glad it was on this song. Song number 10, Coconut. I just wanted to get that one out of the way as it was kind of like fading out my ears there. I think of all the tracks on this album, this is the one I can like properly envision, like sitting down at your DAW, and for the non-musician and producers out there, digital audio workstation. So like, you know, your Ableton, your Cubase, your Fruity Loops, something like that. I digress. This is the one I can properly envision, like sitting down at your DAW. You have like these, like maybe one, maybe two drum loops just kind of going on forever and ever, while you're playing like some sort of like improvised like light melody on like your Axiom 61 or something along the lines of that. Like this just feels like a really heavy mismatch of like a try this and that style of track. So like it feels very full. Like the song does feel full, like with its like layers and just kind of like where it is sonically. But it feels incomplete in that sense too, because again, like it just feels like it's playing with the same loop over and over. It's just like, we need something more out of this. And yeah, the song does give you like a little more as it goes, but just it goes on a little long for what it does give you. And I was kind of hoping for like a little more, maybe a bit of a split in the track. I don't know, but it is what it is. There were things I honestly wanted to like about this track too. Like I really like that darker style of drum beat. I thought that was really cool. I mean, except those like 16th note hits that would come in like every other bar. I feel like that kind of like tacked up the sound a little bit. Wasn't entirely fond of those. I did like the vocals too. I thought they kind of like the vocal section that comes in towards the end. You have to wait a while to get it. I feel like it enhanced things, but unfortunately it's very brief. I mean brief because it goes on for about a minute and a half. But I don't know how much that says considering the song is 6 minutes and 48 seconds. So it would have been nice to have something a little more like that, maybe closer to the beginning as well, maybe a little quieter. I don't know, build it in somehow, but it just didn't have that. That's unfortunate. I mean, it feels like a suiting enough song to actually close out the album, all things considered. I just didn't dig it as much as some of the other tracks. I don't know. Overall, I probably wouldn't go back to this one. But again, there are things I liked about it, and there are things I wanted to like more about it. So that's about as much as I can give that. And that's about as much as I can give the songs on this album for now, at the very least, because we are at the end of Fever Ray's self-titled album. As I pretty much already said, the only way I can really wrap this up is like, I listened to this album a long time ago, discovered it like, you know, back in like 2009, 10, 11, somewhere around, I don't know the exact age range I was in at that point, but it was over a decade at the very least. I liked how different it felt from things I was listening at the time. It was really interesting, atmospheric, airy, just like everything about it just seemed so unique. But there were still things I didn't like about that album at the time. But now that I'm older and I've had time to grow with this and just grow my musical taste, there's a lot more I appreciate about this. So I think I like it more now than I did back then. So I'm glad I decided to pull this one out of the vault. I know I usually tend to pick albums that I like really like or I'm super curious about, but I was very curious to revisit this one to see if it would hold up at all, or maybe I hated it, loved it, I don't know, but I did enjoy it much, much more. I'll tell you my score on that shortly, because the first thing we have to do is rank the songs now. So if you'll give me 1 minute, arrivederci to Spotify, and hello to the numbers on the side of the screen here. 1 through 10, it's time to rank the songs, as per always. Worst to best, least favorite to favorite, not so great to great. However you want to cut that cake, please get the plate, get the knife, cut the cake. Give me slice, please. You can have one too. It's fine. You can cut your cake and eat it too. Is that how the saying goes? I don't know. I haven't heard that one in a while. I digress. It's irrelevant. What's relevant now are scores. So without further ado, let's actually get into this. So number 10, Now's the Only Time I Know. 9, Coconut. 8, Triangle Walks. 7, When I Grow Up. 6, Dry and Dusty. 5, 7. 4, I'm Not Done. 3, Concrete Walls. 2, Keep the Streets Empty for Me. And 1, If I Had a Heart, the song that got me into Fever Ray in the first place. I of course I had to put that one at number 1. I enjoyed it a lot, but I mean, like, yeah, there's quite a few songs like on the top 4, top 5 even at the very least that I like super enjoyed and would probably go back to more frequently. I mean, as a top half of a list should work anyways. So there you go. Those are my rankings of the songs. I want to hear your rankings of the songs too. But wait, I want to hear you rate the record too, because we got to say see you later to those numbers. And if you can just come over here, please, and thank you. Perfect. It's time to rate the record. The graphic is on the screen now. I got to tell you what I thought about this thing, don't I? Well, without further ado, let's get into it then. I don't want to waste too much time. I didn't know where this album was going to land. When I first decided to do this album, I thought for sure it was going to be like a low B tier, like at the worst level, it was going to be like a 71, 72. Surprised myself though, liked it a lot more than I remember liking it, and it came out to 79.50. That is a B plus tier album, like tip top tier B plus album. That's not bad. There's not, like, I know I rag on B tier albums all the time on the show, but B tier is nothing to be ashamed of. That's still great, way beyond half. It's fine, and this is damn near close to the A. So you know what? I'm actually happy I ended up liking this one a lot more, and it kind of encourages me now to check out Fever Ray's future albums. There's 2 more, I believe, that came out after this one over the years. I have not heard them at all. I have not listened to any of them. So maybe it would be a good thing to do eventually on the show. We will see. But in the meantime, just kind of get those scores off the screen, because now I'm going to wrap things up. That is the end of this episode. So thank you very much for joining me, hanging out with me, and listening to this album. And if you did indeed listen to this album, please, I beg you, I would get on my knees, but there's only part of me in the frame right now. Down in the comments below, wherever you're listening, audio, video, doesn't matter, comment sections everywhere. Let me know what you thought about this album. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you like Fever Ray? Hate Fever Ray? How would you rank the songs? How would you rate the records? Would you do you agree or disagree with me? All these things and more I want to know down in the comments below. All of your opinions would be fantastic. You heard mine. I want to hear yours. And of course, there are other places that you can let me know your opinions too, and you can find them over at ratetherecord.ca. That is ratetherecord.ca. The social media links is probably the best place to go to, let me know your opinions on things too. There's also streaming links, the merch link, and of course the RTR Club can all be found at ratetherecord.ca. Whew. That is that. So one more time, thank you very much for joining me this week. Next week, we are revisiting an artist that technically we did back like season 1, I want to say, but that artist was with somebody else. So this time it's just that artist. There's not much I can say about it without spoiling it, so it's hard to come up with a hint for this one. It's out there. It's going to be different. It's going to be a lot of fun, though, so I hope you'll come back and check out episode 119 next week. Until I see you then, go listen to some more awesome music. Take care, friends.